This video is a continuation of Lori and my visit to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. It includes one of the national park's most popular historic areas, Cades Cove, and a hike to a beautiful waterfall. The Great Smoky Mountains National Park was established on June 15, 1934, and it encompasses over 500,000 acres. Cades Cove takes you back in time and provides you with a glimpse of the Smoky Mountains history. The first Europeans settled in the cove sometime between 1818 and 1821. The picturesque 11-mile one-way loop road around Cades Cove is one of the most traveled roads in the national park. Scattered along the loop you will see historic structures, gorgeous views, and wildlife. The historic structures include 3 churches, a working grist mill, barns, log cabins, and many other faithfully restored structures from the 1800s. The gently winding, slow-paced road makes it easy to stop and enjoy amazing mountain landscapes, wildflower meadows, and diverse wildlife. The following historic structures are listed in the order they are approached along the Cades Cove Loop Road. The John Oliver cabin was constructed during 1822 to 1823 by the cove's first permanent European settlers. The Olivers spent the winter of 1818 to 1819 in an abandoned Cherokee hut. The Primitive Baptist Church was originally established in 1827. It was the first of 3 churches established in Cades Cove. Until October of 1832, the church did not have a building and met in members' homes. The Methodist Church was established in the 1820s and met in a log building until this building was built in 1902. The original building was built in 115 days for $115. The Missionary Baptist Church was formed in 1839 by a small faction of the Primitive Baptist Church due to a debate over missions, which the Primitive Baptist Church didn't consider authorized by Scripture. The current building dates from 1915. The Elijah Oliver Place was constructed in 1866. Elijah Oliver was born in the original Cades Cove cabin in 1824. His original farm was destroyed during the Civil War by Confederate marauders. The homestead includes a cabin, a chicken coop, a corn crib, a spring house, and a stable. Part of the cabin was built over a trickling spring which provided refrigeration for eggs, butter, milk, and other foods. The cable mill area includes the Cades Cove Visitor Center, a blacksmith shop, a barn, a carriage house, a chicken coop, a molasses still, a dam, the Rebecca Cable House, and the John P. Cable Grist Mill. The grist mill was constructed in 1868 with a series of elaborate diversions along 2 creeks to get enough water power for the mill's water wheel. Rebecca Cable House was constructed in 1879. The building, which is adjacent to the cable mill, was initially used as a general store. The Henry Whitehead Place was built during 1895 to 1896 by Henry Whitehead. The pair of buildings in the picture represents both the roughest and finest of log construction in the Smoky Mountains. This is one of the 3 houses that were called transition houses that were originally found in Cades Cove. This is the only one left in the park. Separation and divorce were extremely rare in early Cades Cove, but Matilda Shields was deserted by her first husband. Matilda and her son were left without a home, but the community quickly banded together and built her a small, rustic, rough, but much appreciated cabin. It is the much smaller, crudely built cabin behind the main residence in the picture. Matilda met Henry Whitehead, who was a carpenter and committed family man. Prior to marrying Matilda, Henry promised her the finest home in all of Cades Cove. The quality of the carpentry gives the house the appearance of being a modern frame building. When Henry Whitehead built the main residence, he built it directly in front of the small cabin and joined the 2 roofs together so there would be a covered pathway between the 2 residences. The result is a perfect example of fine carpentry and a rough cabin on the same lot. Matilda's son, Josiah, went on to be a famous moonshiner, producing the White Lightning for Cades Cove throughout Prohibition. This house was built by Dan Lawson in 1856. The brick chimney was built with bricks that were made on site. Lawson was Cades Cove's wealthiest resident. Over the years, Lawson expanded both his land holdings and his residence. By the time of his death, the cabin had been expanded to have a large porch and an additional second story. Lawson's land eventually stretched from ridge to ridge. One interesting fact about this cabin is that it functioned as a post office for Cades Cove. A large covered porch was used as a post office that Dan ran from his house. The Tipton Place homestead was initially settled by Revolutionary War veteran William "Fighting Billy" Tipton in the 1820s. The 2-story cabin that remains on the property was initially constructed by Fighting Billy's relative and Civil War veteran Colonel Hamp Tipton. He built the large cabin in the early 1870s. The homestead was complete with a large 2-story cabin, double-pin corn crib, old-fashioned bee gums, which are beehives fashioned from hollowed-out trees, a blacksmith shop, and a barn. The barn, which was common in the 1800s, allowed a wagon to pull through and unload hay or feed for the livestock. In addition, the 2-pen design with the large overhanging eaves provided protection for animals and equipment. The Carter Shields cabin is a rustic log cabin built in the 1880s. It is the last historical structure you can visit on the 11-mile, one-way scenic loop through Cades Cove. This small cabin was the home of George Washington Carter Shields. Carter Shields, a veteran of the Civil War, was crippled in 1862 at the Battle of Shiloh and retired here. A trip to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park would not be complete without experiencing the Cades Cove Loop. This loop is filled with not only bears and wildlife, but history and scenic views. You will want to plan time to explore this gorgeous area. The Laurel Falls Trail might be the most popular and most hiked trail in the national park. The first section is paved and wide, and it leads to an incredible view of the beautiful 80-foot-high Laurel Falls. The trail is an easy 2.6-mile out and back trail.
When we wake, hear the birds and see the sun. Side by side our fears are done. Oh, the good times just begun. Oh, we know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right. With you and I, the future is bright. Sleep, hear the crickets, see the moon, side by side and through. No limit to what we can do. Oh, we know what we have, let's hold on tight. Found what we're looking for in life. Call us crazy, but things are finally right.